Do you ever wake up in the morning, scratch your head and think to yourself, what the hell ever happened to insert former popular wrestler here within the WWE? If you do, I would probably suggest you're a little bit obsessed with wrestling. That really shouldn't be the first thing you are thinking about when you do wake up from a good night's rest, but hey, if you're passionate and you're in love with something, I respect it. But this has happened time and time again over the years, even with guys that left the business and came back to the business but found work with other companies, and that makes you even more baffled. But that's why today I, Simon Miller, am going to go through 7 specific wrestlers and trying to figure out why they never came back to World Wrestling Entertainment. Almost forgot to slap my head. So yeah, it's like part why video, part list video. We're basically taking all the good things about the internet and we're pushing it into one. But yeah, after doing some research on that there old internet, here's why these 7 huge WWE superstars never returned. Number 7, Taz. Given that the human suplex machine has just returned to professional wrestling under the guise of AEW, likely as a commentator, it does once again ask the question, why the hell did he not go back to WWE? Because of course, he was a commentator there before he got up and left, and he did that in April 2009 when his contract expired. He went, you know what, I don't want to work here anymore. I'm going out the door. So he left. And it could have been his next move that did irk some of the powers that be, because only 3 months after this, he turned up in TNA, Total Non-Stop Action, in case you don't remember them, it's not the other thing, aligned himself with the Main Event Mafia, aligned himself with Samoa Joe, and kind of was acting a bit like a heel. Then 3 months later, he just moved on to commentary and went, don't worry about everything I just told you, I am going to be a neutral announcer. He did this as well until 2015, which is a pretty damn good run. That's like 6 years, and you've got to give him a round of applause for that. When he was done there, he went and had like the whole Taz radio show thing, the Taz podcast, which you probably listened to, until he announced he signed for All Elite Wrestling. The weird thing is that Taz would appear on a couple of WWE Network specials over the years, so you can't imagine the relationship was that strained. And there are also plenty of rumors in the 2010s that Taz was going to go back to the company. I remember there was this whole secret mystery thing on Twitter when he was like, a couple of wrestling shows in my neck of the woods, and he was referring to WWE. Then he deleted those tweets and it never went anywhere. So you would have to say that it was this quick jump to TNA that irked Vince McMahon, and he decided he didn't want anything more to do with the former WCW guy. I mean, take what DDP has recently said in some interviews. At the moment, there are managements and officials and people in power within World Wrestling Entertainment that aren't too fond of DDP and won't invite him to do anything in their company simply because he's a little bit affiliated with AEW. And he hasn't even signed a deal with AEW. He's just turned up and done some promos and done some matches. So now when you take Taz, who has signed a contract, well, that thing is probably dead. Good for Taz though, he's back. I think he deserves it. Now somebody throw a towel over his head and make sure that it's orange. Done. Number 6, Jeff Jarrett. If you're not a long-term fan, you probably remember that sometime in 2019, Jeff Jarrett did return to the WWE. He had some weird mini feud with Elias, but during said feud, threw some of the best working punches you've ever seen in your damned life. I mean, we could all learn a thing or two from Jeff Jarrett. For those who have been watching for far too long though, you know that when Jarrett, Vince McMahon and WWE did make up, it was like hell freezing over, because in WWE's eyes, Jeff Jarrett had screwed them over and he was persona non grata. And probably there was like a thing in the rule book that said if you ever see Jeff Jarrett in the street, you just gotta punch him in the face. Happening way back in 1999 at the No Mercy pay-per-view, somehow nobody realized that Jeff Jarrett's contract had expired, but unfortunately he was due to work the pay-per-view. He was the IC champion and they wanted him to lose said belt to China. When he received this news, he went, well look, here's the deal. I will do what you want me to do, but I want $100,000 or $300,000. That kind of value is all over the place when you do a little looking on the old Google, but you've got to give me that money, and only then will I go out there and give up my title. Vince McMahon, realizing he had his back against the wall, went, well, I guess give him his money, and because Jarrett did have a deal with WCW, he did that, and then he left. Unfortunately for Jeff, that didn't really work out too good when the year 2001 rolled round and WWE bought WCW. And do not forget, on that simulcast, or whatever the hell they called it back then, Vince McMahon stared down the camera lens as I'm doing now, and he fired Jeff Jarrett live on the air. And if that isn't an example of bad blood, I don't know what is. He even used Jeff's own catchphrase, and given that Jarrett then went to start TNA, a promotion that was competing with Vince McMahon, and like I say, we all thought any future relationship was dead. It took almost 20 years for this rift to be put to bed, and as Jarrett has said in plenty of interviews, there was a lot of talking beforehand until him and Vince hugged and realized they should just leave the past in the past, especially because by then, total non-stop action was not alive anymore. But if you've ever wondered why Jeff Jarrett never got a run in the ring in WWE, well, now you know. He basically held the company up for money. Number 5, Ahmed Johnson. Another one that veteran fans will understand more. In the mid-90s, Ahmed Johnson was given the keys to the wrestling castle. It was quite clear that everybody was behind this guy and was going to give him a major push, which probably explains why he wore knee pads for elbow pads. And that's not a joke. He literally would put knee pads on his elbows. Ahmed Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. The reasons for this, though, all depend on who you want to listen to, because if we go the Ahmed Johnson route, he says he told Vince McMahon he wanted out of the company when going through some serious personal issues and he just couldn't handle the road anymore. Unfortunately, he didn't really tell Vince that and just went, I want to leave. So it was kind of like a Brock Lesnar deal. McMahon felt hurt, he felt wounded, given he had put all this power behind him, and the two had a big falling out. That is not the only narrative, though, because there have been other guys in the wrestling business, such as Ron Simmons, who basically straight up hated Ahmed Johnson and wanted to let everybody know about it. Stuff that is proven if you go back and listen to Mark Henry, who was once on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, because he told the tale where Ahmed Johnson had injured Ron Simmons, Farouk, for so long he was out for 9 months, and when he came back, he had one thing on his mind: kick Ahmed Johnson's ass. And I don't mean wrestling ass, I mean real ass. And that does seem to have happened as well, because when these two clashed in the ring, the world's strongest man described it as a mauling, and I don't think Ahmed was on the right side of it. A few months later, Johnson was out the company, so I guess if you want to take this side of proceedings, the reason Ahmed Johnson got left and never got invited back is 1, he was dangerous in the ring, and 2, none of his peers liked him. I don't even know what he's doing now, but I hope he's well. Number 4, Mr. Kennedy. This one will always be crazy, because before Kennedy did leave the WWE. Not only was he in line to become the world champion, he was also going to beat The Undertaker for that championship, and he was going to be Vince McMahon's illegitimate son. I mean, if you don't think that is strapping the rocket to a pro wrestler, you clearly don't watch pro wrestling. So Mr. Kennedy was going to be the next big thing, and then he was let go. And it was a combination of bad timing, getting caught up in a steroid scandal, and main event stars saying they didn't particularly like his in-ring style. And because of that, WWE just cut their losses in 2009. But usually what happens with guys like Kennedy is that they do get brought back, because remember, never say never in wrestling. So why didn't it happen for old Kenny Boy? Well, he opened up about this in an interview in 2019. He says it was all down to him, it's on his shoulders, because after he was fired, he went on the offensive about World Wrestling Entertainment and absolutely buried them in some interviews, and because of that, he absolutely destroyed any love lost there may be. And then obviously he went to TNA, and we've already established that when you do go to TNA, Vince McMahon doesn't like it, so now he's just on the outs. So you do have to imagine that even after TNA died, people in WWE remembered some of the things that he'd said. Throw in that Randy Orton is still in WWE, and he's one of the guys that really did fall out with Ken, and I don't think we're ever going to fix this. I'm not even sure it makes sense by this stage, because it has been 11 years since we last see him. I mean, I'd pop for it, because I remember it. I'm an old man, I'm an old wrestling geek, but otherwise maybe it's best that WWE does their thing, and Mr. Kennedy does his thing. Number 3, the Macho Man Randy Savage. It will always hurt, right? Hurts deep down, right in your soul. Because not only was it preposterous that Vince McMahon wanted the Macho Man to stop wrestling in 1994 and just take up a position behind the commentary booth, but he really should have been invited back for one last run in 2001 when World Championship Wrestling died. But that never happened, and like I say, I will never get flippant over it. I mean, even Scott Hall managed to make some kind of a deal, and Scott Hall seemed to be able to fall out with everyone, but when it comes to Randy, nah, ain't nothing happening. So it makes no sense, and really this may always be the case, because there is so much information out there, it's hard to make heads or tails of it. Now, the big one is this ridiculous rumor that I'm not even going to say out loud. Google is your friend. I've already told you about that. Just type it in and you will read about it, and you can make your own mind up. And no, I don't personally believe it. But even with all that, he wasn't inducted into the Hall of Fame until 2015, and that didn't seem right either. He should have been inducted into the Hall of Fame before you could say, oh yeah, nigga. It sucks even more because obviously he did pass away in 2011. That hurt me so much. I remember I heard it on the radio when I was driving to a gig and I had to pull over and just think, oh, well, that's a part of my childhood that's just gone down the toilet. But ultimately, when you go out there and you read all the little bits of information and you understand the relationship between Vince McMahon and Macho Man Randy Savage, I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, think that when he did leave in 1994 to join the competition, the CEO, the chairman of the board, was just really, really hurt. It was doubly bad for him because Hulk Hogan had already left, and maybe if you reversed those roles, the Macho Man would have come back and it would have been the Hulkster that was on the outs for longer than should have been necessary. Sean Waltman has even told stories on his podcast that you couldn't even make a joke about Randy Savage around Vince McMahon because he was so protected of him, he'd look at you like, that ain't funny, you don't say anything about my Savage. So maybe the wounds were just too deep, and that actually is quite sad when you think about it. And there's more murmurings out there that Vince McMahon actually did want to induct Macho Man before he did go in 2015, but Randy was always like, no, if you induct me, you've got to induct my family as well. Vince McMahon didn't want to do that, and that's where the impasse kept going on. A clashing of minds then, but it is a massive shame because there is no way that in 2001 the Macho Man Randy Savage couldn't have at least had one last match, and after that he could have come back as Bonesaw. I don't think I'll ever get over it. Number 2, Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock, at the age of 55, is still wrestling. As you probably know, he's now in Impact Wrestling, and how the hell he looks like that in his mid-50s, well, it blows my mind. But more interestingly than that is that he left the WWE over 20 years ago, and not once has he ever been invited back. And that's crazy, because at one point in time, Ken Shamrock was over like Rover, to the point that people backstage were like, maybe he's so over, we can give him a world championship shot. WWE then kind of ruined it when they turned Ken heel, and they never should have done that because fans actually wanted to cheer him. And in 1999, he decided, oh, Father Time is kind of creeping up on me. I'd like to give mixed martial arts at least one more go. I'm going to leave professional wrestling behind for a while and go and do that. So that's what he did. But you think by now he would have at least been asked to be in the Royal Rumble or something. I mean, who wouldn't like to see Ken Shamrock in the Royal Rumble? I would, but as I say, he hasn't had a peep. According to Ken himself too, he feels baffled by it as well. He was doing an interview in 2019 and feels like his entire legacy has been scrubbed from World Wrestling Entertainment, even more so when we do talk about the Attitude Era, because people will mention Shawn Michaels, they'll mention Triple H, they'll mention The Rock, they'll mention Stone Cold Steve Austin, Road Dogg Billy Gunn, but no one ever says the words Ken Shamrock. And really, it could be comments like that that's actually annoyed WWE, which is why when they think about it, they go, let's just leave him on the outs. I mean, he should be allowed to say these things. I'm just speculating. The rift now is surely even further apart because, again, Ken Shamrock is an Impact. But I tell you this, I would love to see Ken Shamrock back in the WWE. He still looks like he could kill you with a single blink because he's just got that intensity about him. And I really think this has always been a missed opportunity. Number 1, Alex Riley. A departure in situation so shrouded in mystery you'd have to get James Bond on the case. The real twist in the tale is that this also involves one John Cena. Who saw that coming? Riley himself has admitted that yes, this is true, but always decided not to give specific details about whatever went down, which makes the situation even more baffling. But it does seem to stem from a backstage incident when John Cena performed some kind of rib, some kind of practical joke on Alex. He didn't like it, he reacted badly. And well, you don't do that against John Cena. He's basically Tom Cruise. Now, I'm not saying that's not acceptable. Of course it is. If somebody upsets you, you should be allowed to go, by the way, that's upset me. But like, if you're in Buckingham Palace and you're the Queen's butler and you piss off the Queen, only one of you is being shown the door. The big guy Ryback has also backed up these claims, even going out of his way to say, yeah, I saw John Cena bury Alex Riley over and over and over and over again, and that's why he's never going to go back to WWE and that his WWE career is essentially over. In the time since, Riley has taken the occasional shot at Cena over Instagram, because that's just what we do in the modern day, and even though Big Match John has now moved on to other things, he's still flipping John Cena. I imagine, if WWE wanted to bring Alex Riley back, all it would take is a phone call, and he'd be like, do, and Vince McMahon like, I understand, John, and that deal would be nixed. So it's a no-go clause that will be around forever, and I really one day would like Alex Riley to come out and just let me know the truth, because it really, 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 really is very interesting. In 2011, he was on top of the world, he was teaming with The Miz was winning championships, and those two were feuding, and everybody loved it. Then he was just gone. Good and glow, though. At least there's that. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know about any other WWE wrestlers who left the company but have never come back. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling. Head on over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles much like this. You'll learn stuff. Follow WhatCulture on Twitter, WhatCulture WWE, to keep up to date with the latest news. Watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. Some feature my bald asshole head. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Make sure you have yourself a great little day. I'll see you soon.